So this chapter basically sees Yorick taking his rightful place as the king of the bears again, which is fantastic because we all know by the end of this chapter that he was essentially robbed of that through the machinations of Mrs. Coulter, who was influencing the bears on Svalbard. So in the beginning, Lyra is reading the alethiometer. She is asking the alethiometer questions about Yorick's well-being, and so on. And it sort of reprimands her for asking again, which kind of leads us to believe that the alethiometer here really does have a mind of its own. It does have some sort of consciousness or consciousness of its own. And then she sees the bears sort of coming into the combat arena, and they start sitting down. She sees that a lot of them try imitate Yofa with the little mannequin doll holding onto that, and they're dressed strangely and they're overall uncomfortable. And this entire idea of a society living in a way that is ruled by its government to be a certain way, a government that wants its subjects to change who they are. It's not, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't fit well, it's confusing, and the subjects are unhappy, and this is essentially what the magisterium is trying to do to the people of their own world with the experiments that they were doing at Bolvanger. They wanted people to behave and act in a certain way. So obviously that we're dealing here with themes of humanity, identity, and the soul, and also religion, politics, and control. Then, of course, Lyra goes straight into the quick conversation with Yorick the minute that she has to talk to him, and she explains to him how she tricked Yofa, and he's quite impressed with this. And he calls her, he gives her a name, he gives her a title, he says that she's Lyra Silvertongue. And obviously that links in with our theme of truth, lies, and morality, because up until this point, Lyra has shown that she is incredibly good at lying, and that she lies for specific and calculated reasons, mostly to save her own life or to save the life of her friends. Now, however, you can also see that it's sort of helping or elevating Yorick's fighting as well, because he used this against Yofa during their battle. Also, when Lyra is there, in and amongst the only human girl, in and amongst all of these ginormous great big bears, and the fact that she just kind of wants Mar Costa to be there for her, she wants the witches to come fly in and save her, it really, really links in with our theme of childhood, innocence, and maturity, in the way that it shows us that Lyra is still but a young child. So she is still a young child. There are big things going on around her, and she is also yearning for a little bit of comfort and safety at the end of the day. She is a child wrapped up in things that are much bigger than her. We have more childhood innocence and maturity themes coming into play when the fight starts to happen, or the battle starts to, or commences. Lyra really has big and full respect for the ceremony of the battle, and she understands the significance of this fight for the Panserbjörn. She can realize that their culture, has its own motions and ceremonies and rituals, and that is just basically part of who they are. It's similar to when Lyra realizes that Yorick's soul really truly is his armor, all right? Because this proves to her finally that he doesn't need, or one doesn't need, a demon to be whole human, or be a whole person with your own identity. You don't need to have a demon to have a soul, okay? Yorick is who he is because he's comfortable with his soul. He's comfortable with what his soul can do for him, and they work hand in hand like that, and that is what makes him a full sort of identity in and of its own right. So basically, Yorick's armor seems strong because he's comfortable with it. He made it himself. Yofa's armor then appears weak because it's just glitz and glam and big and flashy, but it would suggest, obviously, that similarly Yofa is also quite weak. Then, of course, towards the end of the chapter, everything comes to light about how Mrs. Coulter used a drug to basically influence Yofa, and to eventually lead to Yorick being outcast or cast out of the Pansebjorn colony on Svalbard. So just the fact that she was able to use this human tool, this drug, to control this fantastically powerful subsection of civilization that lives in their world, just goes to show how powerful the human systems and the human structures and political systems are in this world, okay? Even against creatures that are super strong and normally self-assured, the Pansebjorn. So she basically took away that self-assurance that they had within themselves, and that is what allowed Mrs. Coulter to control Yofa. Towards the end of the chapter, or at the end of the chapter, we have one little different theme come through, which is basically destiny versus free will. And it's here where Lyra can't quite figure out what the alethiometer is trying to tell us, or trying to tell her. Now, this has happened to her a few times, and every single time she hasn't been able to figure out what the alethiometer is trying to say to her. It has not gone very well for her. It's always ended in tragedy. It's always ended badly. There's always been something terrible that has happened whenever she is uncertain of what the alethiometer is trying to say to her. We also know that Mrs. Coulter is very, very scared, and none of the people in this story react very rationally when they're scared, and they do not act in ways that are beneficial to really anyone. They just sort of create chaos and mess. So we can assume, as the readers, that going forward or moving forward, Mrs. Coulter is going to become even more unhinged, because we know that she's frightened of something quite scary, something that Lord Asriel is doing that she wants to stop him from doing, because she wants to do it first.